so, I'm cut off again. I can't. Oh, I don't see myself. Oh. Hi everyone, this is Muzna. Welcome to the American Stroke Foundation live Q&A on mindfulness. I'm Muzna. I'm an occupational therapist at the Stroke Foundation. For more information on mindfulness or any of our previous wellness topics, please visit our website at americanstroke.org and use the links to access our YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and blog. Today I'm going to start with some mindfulness basics, and then we will try a mindfulness exercise together. The chat is open for questions and comments, so I invite you to chime in and also let us know where you're from. We always like to hear that. So mindfulness. Mindfulness refers to focusing your awareness on the present while calmly acknowledging and accepting what you're thinking and feeling. It is different than meditation, which involves reeling in our thoughts to help calm our mind. So mindfulness is about awareness of where you are as you are, and meditation is about focusing on one train of thought. So why does mindfulness matter for stroke survivors? So I think a lot of you can relate to the symptoms that accompany a stroke, such as spasticity, motor challenges, cognitive challenges, maybe anxiety or feelings of sadness, stress. What does recovery look like? What is it going to look like? Mental and physical fatigue. So mindfulness has been shown to have an impact in a positive way for all these areas. So the commonality between mindfulness and how it impacts all those things is reduction in stress. So I think a lot of us have heard of fight or flight. So the opposite system of that is our rest, and they call it the rest and digest system. So that's the one that regulates our brain and body and tells us that there's no danger and that it's okay, and slows things down so that we can pay attention to what we need to pay attention to without being in a heightened state. So when we reduce our stress, that's naturally going to have a positive impact on feelings of anxiety, where things tend to move fast, or feelings of sadness, where you're in a cycle of thoughts that are not leading you to and the outcome that you want. Reducing stress helps you reframe pain. So if something is hurting, whether you're trying to do some exercise, or you're trying to sleep, or you're trying to do what the doctor recommended, or put on a splint, if you're feeling pain, practicing a mindfulness exercise helps draw your attention to that pain in a more neutral way, as opposed to thinking of it as something bad, or something as pain as being an indicator that something is wrong or getting worse. Mindfulness lets you feel your feelings without judgment. So we've talked about feel your feelings in a previous live Q&A. So mindfulness, again, awareness of your thoughts and your actions and your feelings exactly as they are. So you're feeling angry. Okay, I'm feeling angry, note it, and then keep focusing on the present. I'm feeling uncomfortable, note it, and refocus on the present. Mindfulness has been shown to have an impact on neuroplasticity, which is the ability of the brain to find new ways of doing things, heal things that have kind of changed after the stroke. Neuroplasticity is the ability of our brain to change as a result of experience. So if we add mindfulness or focusing on the present to our experience, your brain will take that information and help it heal. And then mindfulness can be done by yourself, or it can be done in a group session, kind of like we're going to practice today. And things like the American Stroke Foundation or support groups all thrive on the advantage of having group training opportunities and having social support. So all those things enhance the effectiveness of mindfulness, but also relate to why mindfulness is so effective for stroke survivors. And then lastly, mental and physical fatigue. Mindfulness is a refresher. It's a break from kind of the routine that your brain has gotten into, or the feeling of another day, another day of challenges, another day of working on my stroke, another day of working on my exercises. Mindfulness lets you focus on the present, but in a more neutral way. So whatever's going on is okay. Let's pay attention to that, and then let's also focus on what's going on in the moment. So what are some resources for mindfulness? So there are lots of apps that you can use. Most have a free version, but I would suggest as a starting point, especially if you're new to it, is just go to YouTube and Google mindfulness and start with 1 minute. They're great meditations, mindfulness exercises. 1 minute, you can search by time, you can search by focus, so to reduce anxiety, to help with sleep, to let go of stressful thoughts. But YouTube is there are a lot of great free resources, and the best ones that are like in my toolbox, my 2 to 3 go-to ones, are all free on YouTube. So it's definitely a good starting point. Mindfulness is sometimes, I found in my experience, a more user-friendly starting point than meditation. Meditation, whether it has the connotation based on fact or not, like we sometimes hear the word meditation and we think of a very specific image, and my thoughts, I can't have anything in my head, everything has to be still, I have to be like on a mountaintop with hair, wind blowing through my hair. And, that doesn't make it feel accessible. And especially if you have trouble quieting your thoughts or directing your thoughts, it can be very intimidating. And that entry point can feel that it's far away from you. But mindfulness, again, is just the focus on the present, meeting yourself where you are as you are. And we can all do that, even if it's for just 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds. Mindfulness is really cool because research shows, and they can see it on brain imaging, that your brain responds immediately, just like your brain responds immediately to an anxious thought or a negative thought or a depressing thought, right? We know that when we're not feeling good about ourselves, or when we're challenged with an activity we're trying to do, those negative thoughts start, and then it starts another chain of thoughts, and then it makes us feel worse, and then we feel tired and we lose our motivation. It's just this chain, right? Same with positive thoughts. They can have the same chain. Neutral thoughts, they can have the same change and the chain. So we start with neutral, and then we work on positive and reining in our thoughts, the more advanced mindfulness or meditation practices. So if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and chime in, but we are going to try together. It's about 10 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes. We're going to try a type of mindfulness called a body scan. So a body scan is scanning your body for pain, tension, or anything out of the ordinary. Okay? You can keep your eyes open or closed, whatever you're comfortable with. I'm going to block the camera so that you guys, can look straight ahead without seeing my face. And I'm just going to walk you through a short body scan script. There's no right or wrong way to do this. When I talk to clients or participants or patients and even caregivers about mindfulness, all I say is you just have to be in the same room with it. That's the only starting point. Don't have any other expectation from yourself. So we are going to start that, and if at any time you feel like, this is a little weird or uncomfortable, just stop and hang tight, and we will be back and we'll talk a little bit about it, okay? So I'm going to post it on there. Hopefully it sticks. Okay. Begin by making yourself comfortable. Sit in a chair and allow your back to be straight but not stiff, with your feet on the ground. You can also do this practice standing, or if you prefer, you can lie down and have your head supported. Your hands could be resting gently in your lap or at your side. Allow your eyes to close or to remain open with a soft gaze. Take several long, slow, deep breaths, breathing in fully and exhaling slowly. Breathe in through your nose and out through your nose or mouth. Feel your stomach expand on an inhale and relax and let go as you exhale. Begin to let go of noises around you. Begin to shift your attention from outside to inside yourself. If you are distracted by sounds in the room, simply notice this and bring your focus back to your breathing. Now slowly bring your attention down to your feet. Begin observing sensations in your feet. You might want to wiggle your toes a little, feeling your toes against your socks or shoes. Just notice, without judgment. You might imagine sending your breath down to your feet, as if the breath is traveling through the nose to the lungs and through the abdomen all the way down to your feet. And then back up again, out through your nose and lungs. Perhaps you don't feel anything at all. That is fine too. Just allow yourself to feel the sensation of not feeling anything. When you are ready, allow your feet to dissolve in your mind's eye and move your attention up to your ankles, calves, knees, and thighs. Observe the sensations you are experiencing throughout your legs. Breathe into and breathe out of the legs. If your mind begins to wander during this exercise, gently notice this without judgment and bring your mind back to noticing the sensations in your leg. If you notice any discomfort, pain, or stiffness, don't judge this. Just simply notice it. Observe how all sensations rise and fall, shift and change moment to moment. Notice how no sensation is permanent. Just observe and allow the sensations to be in the moment, just as they are. Breathe into and out from the legs. Then on the next out breath, allow the legs to dissolve in your mind. And move to the sensations in your lower back and pelvis, softening and releasing as you breathe in and out. Slowly move your attention up to your mid-back and upper back. Become curious about the sensations here. You may become aware of sensations in the muscle, temperature, or points of contact with furniture or the bed. With each out breath, you may let go of tension you are carrying. And then very gently shift your focus to your stomach and all the internal organs here. Perhaps you notice the feeling of clothing, the process of digestion, or the belly rising or falling with each breath. If you notice opinions arising about these areas, gently let these go and return to noticing sensations. As you continue to breathe, bring your awareness to the chest and heart region and just notice your heartbeat. Observe how the chest rises during the inhale and how the chest falls during the exhale. Let go of any judgments that may arise. On the next out breath, shift the focus to your hands and fingertips. See if you can channel your breathing into and out of this area as if you were breathing into and out from your hands. If your mind wanders, gently bring it back to the sensations in your hands. And then, on the next out breath, shift the focus and bring your awareness up into your arms. Observe the sensations or lack of sensations that may be occurring there. You might notice some difference between the left arm and the right arm. No need to judge this. As you exhale, you may experience the arm soften and release tension. Continue to breathe and shift focus to the neck, shoulder, and throat region. This is an area where we often have tension. Be with the sensations here. It could be tightness, rigidity, or holding. You may notice the shoulders moving along with the breath. Let go of any thoughts or stories you are telling yourself about this area. As you breathe, you may feel tension rolling off your shoulders. On the next out breath, shift your focus and direct your attention to the scalp, head, and face. Observe all of the sensations occurring there. Notice the movement of the air as you breathe into or out of the nostrils or mouth. As you exhale, you might notice a softening of any tension you might be holding. And now, let your attention expand out to include the entire body as a whole. bring into your awareness the top of your head down to the bottom of your toes. Feel the gentle rhythm of the breath as it moves through the body. As you come to the end of this practice, take a full, deep breath, taking in all the energy of this practice. Exhale fully, and when you are ready, open your eyes and return your attention to the present moment. As you become fully alert and awake, consider setting the intention that this practice of building awareness will benefit everyone you come in contact with today. Okay. Is anyone asleep? Okay. Let us know what you think. That's just one example. There are so many types of mindfulness. Body scan is just one of them. You can do a mindfulness exercise that's based on more physical activity. So you can do a walking mindfulness exercise. Choose a familiar route, one where you're not actively having to, think about where you're going, how far you've gone, one that's familiar, one you can tune out on. You can do a mindfulness practice basically wherever there's any repetitive movement in nature. So some people do mindfulness like looking at a fireplace. If you don't have a fireplace, YouTube a fireplace. The repetitive motion of water if you live near the beach, or if you can look at a fountain, or if you have a fountain, tabletop fountain at home. Anything that's repetitive that lets you kind of tune out will be beneficial for mindfulness and or meditation. So it doesn't have to be this state of nothingness, right? I think that's the biggest misconception. That's certainly the biggest misconception I had. I'm not naturally a calm, chill person. And so I was like, I had a hard time connecting to mindfulness and meditation. And it took me, a good 2 years to find one that didn't make me want to roll my eyes. But at my last job, it was such a big part of what I needed to teach my clients. And I had to do it in a non-traditional manner, and it kind of worked out because I had to talk myself into it too as a non-traditional person who was trying to do the practice. So sometimes I don't use the word mindfulness or meditation. I just say, would it be okay if we try a relaxation exercise? Because again, sometimes that immediate response to hearing that word, mindfulness or meditation, makes people shut down. And so you could call it like a regroup. I need to, get my feet out underneath me. I need to get my feet back under me. I need to regroup. I need to, do a team hustle or, team huddle, not hustle. But however you want to phrase it, you know what I mean? Everyone that is a high performer in their field does some kind of mindfulness exercise. And it could be related to what they're doing. So like sports players could have a mindfulness exercise that actually involves, movements involved with the sport, or it could be something totally separate. So a lot of people who have a life that is very, very fast may gravitate towards a mindfulness exercise that moves a little bit faster than someone who is used to a slower pace, and they may gravitate to a slower mindfulness exercise, or vice versa. Someone might want to remove themselves from how life usually is and go the complete opposite. So life is really fast paced for them, and they most connect with a very slow mindfulness exercise, because just the difference in itself, that huge difference is enough to make a difference. Or that huge contrast, I'm sorry. So Gail says, I do notice a slight difference. Thanks. You're welcome, Gail. Thank you for the feedback. Does anyone else have questions or a mindfulness exercise that has been helpful for them? Please share. The research is really interesting. So you can do Google Scholar, right? And you can look up mindfulness for stroke wellness or stroke recovery. And you can get into all the nitty gritty of why, this is more than just, talk that's only specific for certain people, or why this isn't, like a bunch of baloney or something. It all has a benefit. And so if you're looking for the most comprehensive toolbox, some kind of practice, daily exercise or practice where you focus on the present exactly as it is going to pay dividends in everything. And in terms of like, sometimes I get questions about the best time of day to do it, or the frequency. So in general, to achieve a relaxation state or a relaxation response, which relaxation response corresponds to when your body actually, like your vitals and your insides actually change in a way that reflects a state of relaxation. You only need about 10 to 20 minutes a day, 3 days a week, to get the benefit when it comes to like actual brain activation. In terms of times of day, there is no right time of day. You have to, just like with any other habit or routine you're trying to incorporate into your life, meet yourself where you are. If the mornings, for some people the night is really challenging in terms of anxiety or pain, and if you've had a stroke, it can be really challenging to find a comfortable position for sleep. Some people like to do it in the morning to kind of get their body in a more safe feeling, steady, grounded feeling state before they get out of bed and get through their day. Some people like to do it if they're only doing it once. Some people like to do it in the afternoon as kind of a recharge. And some people like to do it at night as kind of a wind down activity. There's no wrong way to do it. Whatever way gets it done is great. Listening to music can be a mindfulness exercise. They have adult coloring books. I mean, anything that, again, helps you focus on the present is going to be good for the brain. So I see we have 7 viewers. Does anyone want to share their experience with mindfulness, or was mindfulness, or I guess, the general area of stress reduction or managing your emotions, was that stuff addressed after your stroke, either in an inpatient or outpatient setting? I think, looking back at my experience and, reflecting on conversations with colleagues, like, that is definitely something that I know in inpatient, the length of stay is determined by insurance and can be really short. So, we want to practice getting dressed and getting out of bed and getting in and out of the bathroom, and things like sleep and wellness and mental health and emotional health kind of fall by the wayside during that time period. But even if your OT or your psychologist or even a chaplain that visits you, we all have those conversations that we leave the conversation. It may just be a short hello, how are you, or someone shows a kind gesture, and we feel like, like a weight lifted off. Like, that's, kind of mindfulness too, right? Like, that moment in itself, you were so present that it had an impact on everything else that was going on, however chaotic it can seem. Kathy says, shows me how much tension is in my muscles. Yeah, that is actually, that's a really good point. Like, sometimes we're so used to a certain state of stress or pain, and after a stroke, there's a lot of tightness and immobility that we forget what it feels like to not have that extra tension in our body. And so when you do something like mindfulness, it creates a powerful frame of reference that you can refer to, that, hey, like, my body is still capable of change because it can feel like this. And the more you do it, the less foreign it will be to your brain, right? If we are in the same constant state of tension, whether it's from emotional stuff that's going on or muscle tightness or whatever, and we don't do anything to introduce a different sensation to the brain, then that's what your brain will learn to expect every day. It'll come to a point where there's no check-in anymore. It's like another day of pain or tension. That's my baseline. But if you introduce with consistency a different input to your brain, then your brain will assess the situation because there's another option that's in a recent memory. Does that make sense? So yeah, when I think a lot of people are surprised, and I'm always surprised too, like at how different, like for me, it's like the tightness in my chest area can feel when I actually breathe and take the time to do a full inhale and full exhale. We're all really shallow breathers, and when you learn the quote-unquote proper way to breathe, and by proper I just mean full inhale and full exhale, which is different for everyone, in the beginning it feels like, whoa, this is like, how am I supposed to breathe like this all day? That's a lot of work. But oh my gosh, when you it just takes 3 to 5 of those breaths, it's very hard not to feel a difference from head to toe. And that's where anyone starts. Like if you are experiencing a moment of really high activation, whether it's anxiety or pain or whatever, one of the first things they do, in addition to taking deep breaths, right, is putting like a cold compress on the back of your neck, because both of those activate your calm nervous system. And that's the quickest way to introduce your body to the fact that, hey, if I have time to like cool my body down, if I have time to take a deep breath, there's not like this metaphorical or literal lion running at me, you know, or a tiger in the room. So Mary Jo says, thank you, I've never done this, I feel a lot calmer. Good. There are, you know, I was just thinking, I was like, I hope my voice doesn't get on someone's nerves because it does matter. Like people have even if they've never thought about it up until the point that we do the meditation or mindfulness, people very quickly realize they have a very strong preference for male, female voices, the tone, the pacing. Some people are just, you know, there are a lot of mindfulness meditations that are very like stereotypically calm, you know what I mean? So there's that music, you all know what I'm talking about, and there's that tone of like, I call it forced relaxation. Those are immediate no for me, and so don't be afraid to skip through those. Get to one that at least you can stand, you know, like a voice that's like, yeah, this is like, this person doesn't make me want to pull out my hair, you know? So Allison says, interesting. Good. Any other thoughts or comments, or anyone want to share something? So mindfulness, again, it doesn't require any resources that are not already available to you. You just need your body and your breath. That's all you need to start. So look at something repetitive. Try to pick a place that is grounding. So if you are in your office, when I used to, at my last job, I always did a mindfulness practice at lunch. So I would always sit on the floor, which is distinct from my chair, right? So my body automatically knows we're going into this place. I'm grounded because I'm on the floor. I would sit in a corner, so my back and one of my sides was, you know, against a solid surface. The shades would be drawn, the lights would be off. I'd have 2 do not disturb signs on my door. And that's how I would do it. And sometimes, you know, sometimes when I do the mindfulness exercise, and patients have reported this too, like there are some days you're 100% tuned in to what it is you're hearing or doing, and there's some times that you don't even know where the time went, and there's some days you're thinking about your grocery list. It doesn't matter. When you find one that connects with you, your physiological response or your vitals will respond the same. And that's the awesome thing about mindfulness, is that it's as you are, where you are. And when you find one that resonates with you, mind and body, your results will be the same. There have been times that, yeah, my head was definitely not in the mindfulness, and you know, an earlier version of me would consider that not doing it right, or, you know, failing at it. But I know that I get the same response from it. So Kathy says, thinking this can help with spasticity. Yes, 100%. So spasticity, we all have the experience, whether as a caregiver, provider, or stroke survivor, where say you're trying to straighten a hand that's, you know, all clenched up, and the harder you yank on it, the tighter it stays, right? And so the proper or the most effective, efficient way to release a spastic hand is to go the opposite. Be gentle with it and gently guide from the palm and go out. That will release it a lot sooner. And so if you think about mindfulness, where you're focusing on the present and you're experiencing all the sensations without judgment, that will only lend itself to slowing things down, just like, you know, opening a spastic hand. So when I help people with range of motion or their home exercise program, actually we were just doing this yesterday at the mission site, is when people are first getting used to moving their arm in a way they're not used to, all I have them focus on is breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. Let me do the rest. I obviously let them know what I'm doing so that there's not a startle response, but their job is to focus on breathing. And once they get in tune with their breathing, their shoulder opens up beautifully, right? It's not to say that spasticity disappears or that there's no barrier to that affected side. It just means that the quality of movement improves, because the brain can, we talked about in a previous in emotional well-being Facebook Live Q&A, like, we only have so many resources and reserves, right, that we have that we wake up with. And if you are stressed, if you are holding in your breath, then that alerts your brain to a dangerous situation. And so all the resources go there. They go to that fire. So if you focus on your breathing, which again, if you have time to breathe like that, it means there's no imminent threat or danger, resources can go to everything else. So yes, long answer, but definitely try it for spasticity. It'd be an interesting experiment to do with yourself as a warm-up, right? They always say stretch before you do any exercises. Make mindfulness a part of your stretch. Start with the 1 minute one. 1 minute is not a cop-out. 1 minute is effective. Okay. What other questions and comments do we have? While we're waiting, next week on Thursday at 11 o'clock, our Q&A will be on strategies for productive communication with family, caregivers, or your spouse. Communication, my friend always used to say the biggest, problem with communication is like the assumption that you think it's happened. And having a stroke is a life-altering event, and anything that was not in tune with whoever, anything communication-wise that was not on point before the stroke is only going to be amplified after the stroke, right? Because now they're increasing demands on it. So what we'll focus on, or what we'll talk about, is the concept of problem-focused communication versus solution-focused communication, what the difference is and why it matters. We'll focus on the concept of, is it you against me or us against the problem? And then I can share a template that I've used in the past that people can fill out individually or with their partner or caregiver about, that helps you create a very concrete way to communicate. Here is where I am, here is where I'm at, and here's how you can support me. So just a very objective way to communicate that. And it's actually a very helpful exercise because people don't even know themselves. They know they're not getting what they need, but they don't know or are unable to communicate what they do need. So I don't know if you guys heard, that was Gabby, our occupational therapy assistant, on the other side of the door. All right. Any questions or comments? Kathy says thank you. You are welcome. I think there was a really good, and I'll put it in the comments because it's in my office right now. There's a really, I know, so I don't know the person who said it, but there was a really good quote about mindfulness that really resonated with me, and he said that as long as you are breathing, there is more that's right with you than wrong with you. And I think that's a powerful reminder, right? I used to tell my participants all the time at my last job, when there was a lot of post-traumatic stress disorder involved, that you just need to keep breathing and moving, and things will start heading in the direction that you want. So as long as you're breathing, there is more that's right with you than wrong with you. And so for those moments that you're feeling like it's one of those days, I hope you remember that. And also, as we've talked about before, you're allowed to be grateful for how you've recovered so far. You're allowed to be thankful that it wasn't worse. You're allowed to be grateful for the support you have, and at the same time be upset and be grieving and be sad. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. You can have both those emotions at the same time. So show yourself some grace. Okay. Gail says, that's awesome. I need to remember that. Yeah, I actually wrote that down, that as long as you're breathing. I think that's a very powerful, simple reminder, you know. It's a lot more gentle than the recent one that I've had, which is, knock it off. A million people do this every day. Don't get excited about it. So yeah, you know, whatever works. But oddly, that, since I've started, that's like 3 sentences, and I've used it more in the last few weeks than I ever have in my life. And it's oddly, you know, effective even at night when like my thoughts are running about, oh God, I got to do this, and tomorrow's this, and da-da-da. I'm like, knock it off. People do it. You're fine. Okay. All right. We hope to see you next week. If you have any questions or comments, we'll put the link. I don't think I put it on this post for our question and comment form, and we'll make sure when next week we put up our little description of communication strategies that we include the link for the question and comment form so you can submit those in advance. All right. Okay. Thank you everyone for joining, and have a great day. And I don't know how to end this video. Okay.